Our horrible loss in Afghanistan, remember that? These shocking images after all that time, all that money, all that blood America sacrificed to leave like this. It shocked Americans, but how about if you spend time in Afghanistan? How about if you spend time in the military? You may remember Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller. He put out a most remarkable video calling out leaders in the military and the Pentagon. Where was their accountability? You know, people in the military get in trouble for all kinds of things. Losing a rifle, you could be sent to prison, but losing a war, you often get promoted. This video is really something else. And Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller is no longer in the Marine Corps, but he is with us right now on Newsmax. Colonel Scheller, welcome and congratulations. You have a book coming out in August. It's called Crisis of Command, How We Lost Trust and Confidence in America's Generals and Politicians. I look forward to reading that. I know, actually, and we haven't met before, but this was not about a book. I don't think you had that in mind when you sat down and made that video. But first, how you doing? It's great to see you.
It's great to be on your show, Greg. I'm excited to get to talk to your fan base, so thanks for having me on.
You bet. So let's play a little bit of that moment, if you don't mind. And before we actually press play, just tell us your state of mind before you went in there and you were going to kind of tell your story and tell it like it is, your opinion. What were you feeling at that moment?
I've been thinking about this a lot. I've lived this for the last 17 years. It's very personal. I've spent a year in Afghanistan, done 5 deployments. I have a master's in military science. I specialized in foreign diplomacy. I watched this play out real time. I served in the unit that got attacked. That was my first unit. My best friend got hit with a suicide vest in Ramadi in 1-8. Spent a lot of time with him and Walter Reed, so it had come full circle. And as a regimental operations officer, I sent this unit out as much as the higher headquarters can train, man, and equip. I knew all the key leaders in that unit. And ultimately, I knew that no senior leaders were going to be held accountable. So this was something I thought about. It wasn't something that I just decided lightly. But as I watched Afghanistan unravel real time in the news, in the media, in social media, I grew more angry by the day. And ultimately, when that attack happened on August 26th, I decided that somebody needed to say something and a conversation needed to be had. And so I made that decision.
Well, I'm glad personally that you did, and a lot of others are as well. Here is a portion of your announcement that was seen around the world. Let's take a look.
People are upset because their senior leaders let them down, and none of them are raising their hands and accepting accountability or saying, we messed this up. I'm not saying we've got to be in Afghanistan forever, but I am saying, did any of you throw your rank on the table and say, hey, it's a bad idea to evacuate Bagram Airfield, the strategic air base, before we evacuate everyone? Did anyone do that?
Can I tell you what impressed me the most? And I don't know if you know this, but I served in the Marine Corps. You don't strike me as a guy who was against the culture of the Marine Corps. You know, there are Marines like that who are always kind of going in their own direction. I think that you shocked a lot of people because this was a departure from your previous behavior. Or am I wrong? Were you always kind of a little bit of an outlier and marching to your own drum, so to speak?
Everything I did was based on a love of the Marine Corps. I love the Marines. I love being a part of an organization that filled me with a higher purpose. I didn't make this decision lightly, like I already stated, but ultimately I felt like through breaking the rules and going outside of normal protocol, I was doing something that ultimately would benefit the junior service member, and that was what was most important to me.
The reaction, you anticipated there would be a negative reaction from the higher ups, and maybe it wasn't even a negative reaction. I mean, I could understand them coming down on you. You knew that was going to happen. They had a role. You had a role. What happened, and how do you feel about what they did?
Everything I did was calculated. I thought after that first video that the clips you just played, that a boss would put his arm around me and say, hey, Stu, we sympathize. You broke the rules. We're going to hold you accountable, but we understand what you're going through. Why don't you take some time off? We'll let an investigation take place, and then we'll let the chips fall. That was the reaction I anticipated. But instead, I was fired immediately. Even then, I wasn't upset. I understood that it was coming. So I made a post that said, hey, they did exactly what I was expecting them to do. And I just want to say thank you. But then they just kind of continued to attack me. I had a previous boss that got on my public social media and said if I was honorable at all, I would resign. And there was just all these little pokes in the chest that I was starting to get the impression that the higher leadership might not care about me as much as I cared about the Marines and everything that I was doing. And so it just became this thing where I knew I could maybe get an NJP best case and limp towards retirement, but I couldn't live my life like that. And I decided that the only way out was all the way through. The message was what was most important. And so just like when you're in a fight, if somebody starts pushing you and you're standing there thinking what you did was right and you're protecting people, you push back. And so it became this series of escalating events that ultimately culminated with me in jail.
Exactly. And the jail part, I was shocked by. Because, you weren't caught drunk, you weren't caught, how did they justify putting you in the brig?
In their defense, there was a gag order in place that said I was not allowed to communicate or post on social media. And I made a post that had things in there that were hard to hear, but were all very true. And I said in the post, I'm ready to go to jail. But when I made that post, had read the manual for court martials and the UCMJ, and I knew that there was things that had to be in place for them to justify it. One of those was that I had to be a flight risk. And I literally showed up at 08 that Monday morning, and they sent me to jail. And by the way they justified it was saying that I was a flight risk, which is just blatantly false. I answered every text. I answered every phone call. I showed up to work every day. And so they ultimately said I was a flight risk to confine me.
When we say they, how far do you think this is going up the chain of command? I mean, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, the Secretary of Defense, the White House, or I have a feeling that Washington, D.C. may have been leaning into this, but you tell me, who is making these calls?
I know for a fact General Alfred, the two-star, was really pulling the strings, but who he was talking to, I can only speculate. I have no idea.
So you make the statement, you said what we believe needed to be said. What was the impact? I mean, you demanded accountability. As you know, I don't think anyone's been fired. Everyone seems to still have their job at the strategic level. So as much as I admire what you did, what was the impact? What happened? Or will we someday see a benefit from what you did? What are your thoughts?
Fight's just beginning. I mean, I just got out. I just got off the gag order. There's only so much that I could do in the military. I'm just starting the media rounds, but I have plans. I'm not going to quit. We're going to bring accountability to the system. What I've been shocked by is the amount of people that believe that you can't change the system, that that's just the way it is. We have had operational and strategic failures since Vietnam. General officers are not being held accountable. We've won every tactical battle over the last 20 years, and we're still losing wars. There's obvious problems that need to be fixed. And so for us just to relegate ourselves to this is the way it is, that's just not how I'm built. And I have the opportunity now with some of the platforms and resources that I have to make change, and I plan on doing that.
The letter that you submitted, I believe, requesting a separation, let's go ahead and put it up. I thought this was something else, and I actually got a huge kick out of it. My reason for submitting a letter of resignation, a lack of trust and confidence in your ability to lead. Sometimes when a commander is relieved, you know that they have lost faith and confidence in the individual. You lost faith and confidence in management. That had a nice touch to it. I don't know if you were smiling when you wrote that, but that was something else.
If you actually go back and look at that letter, the last part of my signature, I put it through the paper. That was unintentional, but I signed it very angrily because of the emotion that was there. And I put it there just like we were talking about. In the video, I talk about how an 05 commander can be relieved for the simplest things. And it's just like you said, Greg, a lack of trust and confidence is the cliche that they use without any details to the public about why they're firing these people. And just enough's enough. There's an obvious double standard of accountability, a two-tiered system that needs to be addressed. And I think we all agree it. We all see it the same way. It's just I'm the only one talking right now. But I think over time, as we continue to have this conversation and people start to come to my side, that we will be able to affect change.
To be continued, sir. Please come back. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, former Marine. The book, we look forward to it. It's called Crisis of Command, How We Lost Trust and Confidence in America's Generals and Politicians, coming this summer. To be continued again. Thank you, sir. All the best.
Thank you, Greg.
We'll be right back.